Good afternoon, Doc.
Good afternoon. We have 10 minutes now, so I'll just finish some work.
Yes, yes. Everyone's just joining in.
Good afternoon, everyone. We'll do a quick camera check. Good afternoon, Mrs. Malikumar.
Good afternoon, dear.
Hello, ma'am. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Kinjal. I can see.
Very good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon. Dear, can you see me? I cannot. I switched on my video, but I cannot.
Yes, ma'am. We can. We can see you. I think
Okay.
once the slide goes off, you'll
I
be.
see. I see. Okay. No, I just wanted to adjust my screen, so that's the reason I just asked.
No, it looks perfect.
Okay.
If you want, you can come over here.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You want to see, check your camera?
Yeah, I'll come.
Why don't you come and see?
Kavya, you're fine. Naira, that's fine. Anushka, that's fine. Thank you so much, girls.
Ma'am, a quick introduction. Dr. Lokhandwala is in with us. Doc, are you here? He's muted himself.
Yes, I'm very much here.
Oh, lovely.
Introduce you to the principal.
Yeah.
Hello. Oh, good afternoon,
Hello.
doctor. Lovely to meet you.
Yeah, same here. Dr. Kinjal has been telling me about you, your school, and your enthusiasm, innovativeness, and discipline. So I'm quite keen to see the.
Yes.
And I believe it's not just the students, but also some of the parents who will be attending.
Yes,
today.
yes. Actually, what we have done is we have sent the link to all our parents, whether, from nursery right up to class 12, so that the parents can join in, even if the little ones don't join in. So I hope we have a good audience.
Yes, I'm sure. And you will see that our team of Sumaya and Anand, I think they're seasoned campaigners now, and I'm sure the message. I think English will be we'll conduct only in English, right?
Yes.
That would be good.
Just a minute.
So I can see the introducer, Miss Narnia. Oh, sorry, Naira, who is going to set the ball rolling.
Yes. I think our YouTube link has also gone live. So anybody going on directly to YouTube can also see the event now.
Okay.
Honey, can I put on the AC so that the room is a little comfy?
Kinjal, what is the time by your watch? Is it 5 to 4?
It's 3:53.
3:53. Okay. Okay, then mine is just that wee bit fast.
I'll
As
follow
soon,
that.
as soon as that slide goes off, then I'll start, won't I?
Yes, we'll be changing the slide now, but it will go
Okay.
off after 5 minutes.
Okay, fine.
Anand, you can change the slide, please.
So while we are waiting, Mrs. Malik, can I have some brief background about your school?
Sure, doctor. We are around 153 years old. And the school was started by nuns, but we are carry on, even though we are not nuns, we are still carrying on the job of education. So the nuns had come from Wantage in England to educate the girls in Maharashtra. So that's how the school was started. And I would say that we have been doing a good job of educating the girls. We have a girls section and we have a boys section too. But in the junior college, it is co-ed. So we follow the ICSE and ISC curriculum.
Okay.
Anything else you would like to know?
No, it seems to be a school with rich tradition and a very old school.
Yes.
I passed out of a school called, which was also ICSE, Jamna
I
by
see.
Nasi.
Yes, of course, very well known.
So I remember we used to have 4 or 5 textbooks in English and 3 or 4 in Hindi.
Yes, yes. It hasn't changed much if you look at it that
Shakespeare,
way.
is there Shakespeare from class 7 onwards?
Absolutely, absolutely. It still carries on. And
So
doctor, you
Naira,
must...
what Shakespeare are you studying, Naira?
Naira, are you there?
Good afternoon, doctor.
Yes, so what Shakespeare are you studying?
Oh, we're learning The Tempest right now.
Okay. I remember we had Merchant of Venice.
Yes, we completed The Merchant of Venice last year.
You remember how it started? In sooth, I know not why I am so sad. That's how it started.
Yes, Antonio's melancholic speech.
Yeah. And you remember, whom did you vote for? Shylock, Portia, Antonio. Our class was all for Shylock.
I think my favorite character was Portia.
Doctor, do visit us when you come to Pune.
Yes, I will.
You're most welcome.
So if I can burst his bubble, he's here next Saturday.
Oh, okay. All right. Yes. So a standing invitation. You're most welcome to bring Dr. Lokanwala Kinjal to school.
It will be my pleasure, ma'am.
Okay. Just give me a minute. We are, I think, 3 minutes away from starting. I'll just join you in a minute.
Yes.
Sure.
Good morning, good evening, Malik ma'am. I'm Anand.
Good evening, Anand. Lovely to meet you.
Same here, ma'am. I'll be one of the trainers. So
Okay.
Anand, if you could switch off the slide, please.
I was about to do that. All right.
Kinjal, shall I start?
Yes, ma'am. You're on spotlight. You can be seen by everyone.
Okay. All right then. Good afternoon, everyone. And a very warm welcome to each and every one of you. I'm Mrs. Malikumar, the principal at St. Mary's School, and it is such a pleasure to be on the platform with all of you. As you are aware, the 29th of September was celebrated as World Heart Day. And what did we do? We read a whole lot of articles on how to keep our hearts healthy. And we learned about a whole lot of cardiologists and the fantastic work that they are doing. Well, one of our finest cardiologists is with us here on this platform today, Dr. Yash Lokhandwala. And I wish him a very warm welcome from all of us here at St. Mary's. We also have with us other renowned people. And if you think about it, the sudden cardiac arrest, or SCA, which is the major cause of death in India, we need to do something to save our victims from SCA. And so what do we have to do? We do need to get ourselves trained. And to do that and to enlighten us on that subject, we have with us Dr. Kinjal Goyal, Miss Sumaya Raghavan, and Mr. Anand Srivastav. Thank you for being with us. A very warm welcome to each one of you. And we are most eager to learn from you. Before we begin, I request Naira Vas to lead us in prayer. Over to you, Naira.
Thank you, Mrs. Malikumar. I invite our esteemed guests, trainers, and the entire school community to join me in prayer. Heavenly Father, we come to you humbled by the effects of the pandemic, yet we know that you are always in control. Your ever-presence during troubled times has built our trust in your love and mercy. We pray specially for our healthcare workers who bear the fruits of healing and whose watchfulness has saved countless lives across all nations. We pray that you may give them courage, strength, and fortitude to continue serving at the front line. Bless the doctors and healthcare workers who have patiently been conducting these workshops during the last week and are empowering us to be helpful citizens in times of need. May your love sustain them, peace surround them, and your Holy Spirit inspire them through these challenging times. We ask this in your holy name. Amen. I now hand you over to Kavya Karthikeyan, who will introduce our esteemed guests.
iCare is a non-profit initiative by the Holy Family Hospital, which is based in Bandra, Mumbai. In honor of the National Sudden Cardiac Arrest Awareness Week, iCare has organized this workshop to enlighten people from all walks of life on how to save a sudden cardiac arrest victim. We would like to warmly welcome Dr. Yash Lokhandwala, Dr. Kinjal Goyal, and their team who will be conducting today's workshop. Dr. Yash Lokhandwala is a cardiologist with special training in the electrical system of the heart. He has been at the helm of the field of cardiac electrophysiology for the last 30 years. Along with being a skilled clinician, he is also an astute academician with more than 220 publications and research papers in national and international journals. He is the author of the book titled Conventional Cardiac Electrophysiology, a case-based approach, published in 2020. Dr. Lokhandwala has been in several leadership roles and is currently the president of the Indian Heart Rhythm Society. I now request Dr. Lokhandwala to please share his thoughts with us.
Thank you, Kavya, for your kind words. Good afternoon to everyone. Respected Principal, Mrs. Sujata Malik Kumar, Vice Principal and Program Coordinator, Ms. Menezes, the other Vice Principals, teaching and the non-teaching staff, parents, and dear students. It indeed gives me great pleasure to be with you during this session. As you know by now, the National Sudden Cardiac Arrest Awareness Week was conducted, and today is the final day, and this is the finale. So we thought it was the most appropriate way to end this week's program by having a broad range of age groups from children to the elderly with us today. Because as you understand, cardiac arrest can affect anyone. And it's important that the youngsters know about it because they will carry this knowledge with them for decades to come. And most of them surely will come across a victim of cardiac arrest during their lifetime. And who knows, many of you children present here today will one day save a life. And that will give immense satisfaction to all of us who attend this program today. A special mention that all children, of course, today attending would learn about this, but students from 9th standard upwards are the perfect age bracket for learning resuscitation or CPR, which is a procedure that, as you will hear, has to be implemented immediately in a cardiac arrest situation. In fact, the CBSE and certain state boards, including Maharashtra, have included this in the curriculum. And it won't be long, I believe, before the ICSE follows suit. We're indeed happy to have the parents with us today. There's no simpler way than to say that the more people that are trained in CPR, the better are the chances of survival for any victim of cardiac arrest. This last week, we've had tremendous participation from many cities in the country. And as I always said, let 100 flowers bloom. Let many groups all over the country take up this mantle of spreading the awareness and training of cardiac arrest. I'm sure the state and the national governments are also pitching in. So one day we make India a cardiac arrest safe country, at least to start with the cities. I cannot forget the efforts of Kinjal Goyal in setting this week together. It was a Herculean task, believe me, but she really went after it hammer and tongs. She could entreat and beseech like the lady with the lamb. But when it came to doctors who, you know how we are quite recalcitrant sometimes. She also had to behave like the Rani of Jhansi, commanding her troops. And I must say that, and Anand and Sumaya will agree with me, that the awareness that has been created. The Indian Society of Anesthetists are also participated in a big way, and we've got together. What we've got together in this week has been beyond our wildest expectations. With that, I won't take any further time, and let's get on with the program. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Lokhandwala. I would now like to introduce to you Dr. Kinjal Goyal. Dr. Kinjal Goyal is a health psychologist and an active member of Team iCare. She has a PhD in health psychology, has authored several books, and is the proud parent of 2 Maryites. We now hand you over to our esteemed team of professionals who will commence the training session. Over to you, Dr. Goyal.
Thank you so much, Kavya, for your kind words. Thank you, Dr. Lokhandwala, for being so generous in your praise. A very good afternoon to our principal, Mrs. Malikumar, to all the vice principals, to the parents, and to all the students present here today. Without further ado, I now introduce you to Sumaya Raghavan, the operations head at iCare, and Anand Srivastav, our project director. They will conduct the training from now. A few words, a few pointers. We already have more than 350 participants and they're filling in fast. Kindly spread the word amongst your friends and colleagues that in case they can't enter the meeting, they can watch us on YouTube Live. The link has already been shared with you. Also, please ensure that whatever questions you have in mind, don't save them for the end. Keep posting your questions in the chat box, put them in the Q&A box. Dr. Lokhandwala will be answering them through the session and also be taking some questions at the end. I now invite Sumaya to start the session, please.
Thank you so much, doctors and principal ma'am, and a very warm welcome. Let us start the session. The topic today is sudden cardiac arrest resuscitation. But sudden cardiac arrest, very few of us have heard about this term, while a heart attack is very commonly used. So the first thing we need to understand in this session is that a heart attack and a cardiac arrest are 2 different things. So coming to a heart attack first, a heart attack happens when the arteries to the heart get blocked. They get blocked due to so many reasons: long time diabetes, high cholesterol, and smoking habits. And because the arteries to the heart get blocked, blood doesn't flow freely to the heart. So the person experiences chest pain, jaw pain, shoulder pain, excessive nausea. He sits down and says, "I'm not feeling well. Please take me to the hospital. I'm getting a lot of chest pain." So you know this person is feeling uncomfortable. You rush him to the hospital in a taxi or a car. This is a heart attack situation. But a cardiac arrest is totally different. A heart that pumps like this, the heart just stops in a sudden cardiac arrest. And because the heart is stopped, the person just collapses. Could be in the house, on the road, on the street, in a railway station, anywhere. If the heart has stopped, the person collapses. Now, what is the function of the heart? It pumps blood to the various parts of the body and to our brain. And if the blood doesn't reach the brain in 3 minutes, the brain goes into a damaged condition and it affects the person in 10 minutes. Now tell me, if somebody collapses in front of you, who's going to help this person in 3 minutes? Will you reach a hospital in 3 minutes? Will an ambulance come to you in 3 minutes? Or any doctor come to your help in 3 minutes? The chances are very slim. So who's going to help this person? You are going to help the person. But when are you going to help? When you know what to do. When you don't know what to do, you're going to rush him to the hospital. So this is the reason why we are here to tell you in an emergency, if somebody collapses in front of you, what you need to do in these 3 crucial minutes. But when I say somebody has collapsed in front of you, every collapse is not a sudden cardiac arrest. A person could have collapsed due to so many reasons. Either he's had, overdose of medication could be a reason. He's not had breakfast in the morning. His sugar level has dropped. He's collapsed. He could have had fits. That could be a reason of collapse. Or even a drunken person collapses. So many reasons of collapse. So the first thing that we are going to teach you today is how to recognize a sudden cardiac arrest. After you've recognized, you can do chest compressions, which we are going to teach you today. That is CPR or cardiac massage. And the third thing that we're going to teach you today is how to use this machine. This is an AED. The full form is automated external defibrillator. In lay language, it's called a shock machine. This machine gives a shock to the stopped heart so that it starts pumping again. But this is not for doctor use, it's for a lay person to use, because the moment you switch it on, it tells you what to do step by step. You might have seen in movies, the doctor takes the person to the operation theater, he gives a little bit of a jhatka, and he says this person is okay. This machine does the same work in the hospital. It is a big defibrillator, big machine. This is a small portable machine with which our project, we are putting it in various places starting from Bandra. You must have seen many of these at the airports, so many malls have this too. So how to use this machine also we are going to teach you. So let's start off with the presentation, Anand.
Sure. All right. So good evening, or the students, or the parents, the principal ma'am, and vice principals and other dignitaries. Our understanding is that we do not really want this session to be just another session. We want it to be relevant. We want everybody to understand. That's the reason why we're going to make sure that we say it in a language which is not difficult. And if anything that you think you have not understood, you're free to ask us at the end of the session. I'll begin with an observation. We've observed this a lot of times where, if you happen to be at a public space, for example, you're walking down the street one day. If you happen to see a person collapse, you will notice there are a lot of people gather around and they're just watching what's happening, but nobody's really trying to help that person. You must have seen this happening. Now, my question to you is, why does that happen? Why is it that people are just, not taking any step further to help that person? People are just standing and watching. So our understanding is that there are a few reasons why people do that. And we also understand that it's not like they are not sensitive to the situation, they are, but they're scared of a few things. And according to us, the number one reason why people don't rather help the person in need is because they're worried about the cops. So they think, if they're trying to help that person and something untoward happens to that person, there is a possibility they might be, blamed for it. And they would have to face a lot of inconveniences, which nobody really wants. And that's why nobody, wants to try and help, which is not such a great thing. We need to. But I understand the problem also. Now, the government of the country, they understood this problem. They took cognizance of it. Specifically the Ministry of Road Transport and Highways. So they came up with a certain guideline and they came up with certain standard operating procedures and they named those guidelines the Good Samaritan Law. Now, this law basically advises the police, if they happen to be on the street and they happen to see a person collapse and they happen to see another person helping that person, they have been advised to not ask that person for his identification, or if there are more than one people, to not ask for their identification. Simply because if they do that, then the people who are trying to help, they get discouraged. And the next time somebody needs help, they're not going to do that. And the same thing has been advised to the hospitals as well. So the hospitals have been told that, if a person is getting another person in the hospital because he found that person lying on the street and that person needed immediate medical attention, to please not take their identification, not to give them the form where they have to write down the names and numbers, etc. Okay, so I am telling you this because the next time somebody needs help, please go and try and help. Okay, you're protected by the law, nothing's going to happen to you. The second reason why people don't help each other is because they don't know what to do. And specifically when it comes to sudden cardiac arrest, you wouldn't know what to do. So we're definitely going to tell you about it. And the third reason is COVID-19. So they don't, everybody's scared, they might contract COVID-19. So all I want to say about this at the moment is that, whenever you're trying to help a person, be sure that you're observing or following all the COVID protocols. Specifically, be sure that you have a mask on your face before you try and help that person. And if the victim doesn't have a mask on his face, if you have a handkerchief, maybe a dupatta, maybe put it over that person's mouth and then try and help that person. Okay. All right. So we'll go ahead and you should be able to see this slide where you see a photograph and you see a lot of people watching a person and he's apparently unconscious or maybe lifeless. But if you observe, they're not trying to help that person. Nobody is taking a step forward, asking what's happening to the person. Now, why is it that people do not help? For the same two reasons I just told you. They're scared of the police and they don't know what to do. So we understand this problem. It's a chronic problem. Now, usually what happens is people call the ambulance, which is a great thing. So they're waiting for the ambulance to arrive and the ambulance is going to take the patient to the hospital and see what can be done for the victim. But I want to tell you something over here. if a person has collapsed due to sudden cardiac arrest, then even though you may have called the ambulance, so suppose, let's assume that you are in one of the crowd. So you have called the ambulance. Now, if the person happens to have fallen due to sudden cardiac arrest, even though you may have called the ambulance, it's important that you try and help that person. Why am I saying that? Because that person will not have enough time on his hands. How much time is he going to have? Not more than 3 minutes, because within about 3-4 minutes odd, his brain is going to get damaged, and nobody wants that, right? And sometimes what happens is the ambulance is really trying to make it as soon as possible, as fast as possible. But, maybe sometimes due to traffic conditions, it is not able to reach within 3 minutes of time. So if it's reaching, say, 8 minutes, 9 minutes later, by that time, 3-4 minutes have already gone by and the brain's already damaged. So nobody wants that. And that is the reason you need to help that person. And also, this is also one of the basic reasons why we are here telling you what you need to do in those crucial 3 to 4 minutes. Okay, just remember one thing, every single minute that you think, whether you should have that person, the cop problem, this problem, that problem, the person is dying by 10%. And if you wait for 10 minutes, the person is gone, right? Okay, so moving on, here's another slide, and you should be able to see 3 people in this slide. I'm sure you must have recognized these people as well. Christian Eriksen, Rima Laguji, and Dr. Kalam Saab. Christian Eriksen happens to be a footballer. Rima Laguji, of course, you must have seen on her television and movies. She was an actor, and Dr. Kalam Saab, of course, was a former president of the country. Now, Christian Eriksen had a cardiac arrest right in the middle of him playing a game. So he's about a month back. So his game was in progress. He fell down because he got a sudden cardiac arrest. But fortunately for him, 2 doctors rushed to his aid, provided CPR, and he got saved. So out of the 3 here, he's one of he's the lucky one. He's still alive, he's well, and he's healthy. But if you see Rima Laguji and Dr. Kalam Saab, they're not with us today. They did not make it. Now I have a point to show you this slide, show you these people. But
Anand,
yes.
Anand,
yes.
If I may interrupt at this point, because
Yes.
I know that many of the boys and girls who are attending today are great football fans. And apart from Eriksen, many of them will also remember Muamba, the footballer also, who actually was revived from cardiac arrest.
Yes,
But you'll also remember there have been certain footballers who have passed away on the field, including, I think one was in India. And maybe that again highlights the need for prompt availability, knowledge, first of all, awareness and availability of not only performing CPR, but in these high-risk scenarios, having the availability of a defibrillator or a AED.
Yes, absolutely, doctor. Absolutely. All right, so I'll continue. Rima Laguji and Dr. Kalam Saab, they did not make it, unfortunately. Now, my point to show you these people is that, before I make the point though, I want you to notice the ages of these people. If you look at Christian Eriksen, he's young, and Rima Laguji, she's a bit elder to him, and Dr. Kalam Saab, of course, the eldest amongst the 3. Now, my point was that sudden cardiac arrest is one thing that can happen to just about anybody, anytime. So it's basically regardless age. So if somebody were to think, the name itself sounds pretty dangerous, it might happen only to people who've crossed maybe 70, 80 of age. That is not true. It can sometimes happen to children as well. The point being, every single person needs to know how to help each other, just like Dr. Yash mentioned just now. Also, it's not just regardless age, but it's also regardless gender, and it's regardless fitness levels. So it can happen to a man, it can happen to a woman, and it can also happen to a person who's absolutely healthy, has a great diet, goes to the gym every day. It can still happen to that person. And then you would wonder, how is that possible? So I'm going to tell you a few more details about it. You're going to come to know about it. Okay. All right. So this is a slide of the differentiation between heart attack and cardiac arrest. So I would like to tell you the difference simply because you need to understand what exactly the symptoms would mean in a person so that you can help accordingly. Now, if you heard Sumaya mention earlier, she said that heart attack and cardiac arrest are 2 absolutely different things, and they are. So I'm going to tell you the difference, but let me begin with heart attack. So what exactly is heart attack? Let's understand first that our heart is a muscle. You have a lot of muscles in your body. Your heart is one of them. Okay. Now, the primary function of the heart is to supply blood all over the body, right? Now, we all understand that and we know that clearly, but what we generally forget or we do not understand is that it supplies blood not all over the body only, but it supplies blood to itself as well, right? And how is the blood supplied? Via arteries. Now, those are known as coronary arteries. Now, some problems start occurring in these arteries, and those are known as blockages. I'm sure you must have heard this term being used by doctors majorly. They always mention this, if somebody is actually going through it, 60% blockage, 70% blockage, etc. So that's what they mean. So the problem that the blockages create is that they stop the supply of blood. So, and these blockages keep growing over the years. The more the blockage is, the more the supply of the blood is stopped, right? Now, what happens is, if at a certain point of time, the blockages have grown so big that they're covering the entire artery, the entire blood supply is stopped. Now the blood isn't going anywhere in the body, neither is it going in the heart. And therefore, the muscles and the tissues of the heart, they die. And this process itself is known as heart attack. Okay, let me tell you the symptoms of heart attack so that you understand what can be seen in a person who's going through it, so you can act accordingly. Now, let's assume that the person is in front of you and he's going through it. So what is it that you're going to observe in him? You will observe that he has massive chest pain. It's known as acute chest pain right in the middle of the chest. You might observe palpitations and perspiration all over his body, basically also his face. You might observe back pain, left shoulder pain, jaw clamping, and you will observe that he's become suddenly very weak. So whatever he may be doing, you just sit down. And also you would observe that he has a very difficult time breathing. So he'll have a very hard time breathing. So if you ever happen to come across a situation like this, where you're looking at a person and he's showing these signs, you need to immediately rush that person to the hospital, because chances are that he's about to get a heart attack, right? Now, I just stated something very obvious. Now, you might think, obviously, we're going to do that. But what happens is sometimes people don't do that. And quite innocently so, because they don't really understand these probably are the symptoms of a heart attack. So what they do is, or rather what they think is that maybe this is a gas problem. So they say maybe it's a gas problem, maybe it's an indigestion problem. So just, sit for 5 minutes, I'm going to get you water, put some ENO in the water, and then you have a drink and you'll be okay. But you please don't do that. Rush that person to the hospital immediately. Okay, let me come to cardiac arrest, what we're trying to tell you today. Now, cardiac arrest is totally different from heart attack, also in terms of how it occurs. So blocked arteries, etc., nothing to do with that, the way it happens in heart attack. So what exactly occurs? Let's discuss this. So our heart, or rather the heart of an adult, or to be very specific, the resting heart of an adult, it beats with a certain rhythm. And that rhythm is between 60 beats per minute to 100 beats per minute, right? Now, if this person happens to meet with an accident, or maybe he's got a big electricity jolt, or maybe he's drowned in the water for a long time and somebody's got him out of the water. So what happens is the rhythm of the heart that I just mentioned is it goes completely haywire. It goes chaotic, right? And basically towards the upper end. So I just told you the rhythm between 60 to 100. So instead of the heart now beating like this, beep, 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 it goes like this. Okay. And when I said towards the upper side, I meant when it should be beating between 60 to 100, instead of 100, now it's beating at 150, 200, 250, 300. So it's literally going like this. And this is known as fibrillation. So fibrillation of the heart is what it's called. Now, because it's doing like this, the heart doesn't know what's happening and therefore it stops. And this very process of the heart stopping is known as cardiac arrest. Now, cardiac arrest happens absolutely suddenly, and therefore it's known as sudden cardiac arrest. Heart attack is not known as sudden heart attack. Okay. All right. So now let me tell you what you might observe in a person who's just had a cardiac arrest. Okay, so let's again assume that the person is right in front of you. So, and he's just got a cardiac arrest. What is going to happen? The person is immediately going to collapse on the floor. And since the person has collapsed right in front of you, obviously you're going to be a bit concerned. So you're going to want to, have some kind of response out of him. So what are you going to do? You're going to probably tap his shoulder or, touch his shoulder and try to shake him and ask him whether he's okay. So you're going to say something like this: "Hello, are you okay, sir? What happened to you?" But you're not going to get any response out of him. Then you might want to check the breathing of this person. How do you check the breathing of a person? Your finger under the nose of the person. If you do this, you'll realize that there is no breath either. No breath on your finger. Then you might want to check the pulse of this person. So you must have seen the doctors do maybe like this, you're going to check, or maybe you might want to check it like this. If you do these procedures, you'll realize that there is no pulse either. And at this particular point of time, you are going to panic because what you have just observed is panicky. So the person has fallen down, he's non-responsive, he's not breathing, and he has no pulse either, which means now what is going to be your logical conclusion here? You're now going to think that I think the person is now gone, person is dead. That is what you're going to assume. But I am telling you today, if you ever happen to come across a situation like this, where you're seeing exactly the same things that I just described, please do not make a mistake of thinking that the person is now dead, okay? Because that is not going to be true. The fact is going to be that the person has now gone into a sudden cardiac arrest situation and he needs your immediate help, okay? And the other thing is, you are not supposed to be pronouncing a person dead, by the way, regardless of whether you think the person is gone. That is not your job. That is the job of a doctor. Let him understand what is happening to him and then let him make the decisions. Okay. So this is what cardiac arrest is, and this is what you're going to see in a person. Right now, remember, I told you earlier in the slide that it's important that you help a person within 3 to 4 minutes of time. Why did I say that? Let me explain that to you very quickly. So our body has a very sensitive organ by the name brain. It's called the brain. You know that. Now, the brain requires a continuous blood supply to it. Now, if the person has just got sudden cardiac arrest, he's just suffered a sudden cardiac arrest, that means all the functions of the heart have stopped because the heart has already stopped. That means the blood is not flowing anywhere in the body. Now, the brain requires a continuous blood supply to it. And if it doesn't get a 3-minute of blood supply continuously to it, the brain goes into a damaged condition. So within about 3 to, let's say a few more seconds, probably a minute, within 3 to 4 minutes, the person's brain is going to get damaged, right? And nobody wants that to happen. And therefore, it's important you have that person before 3 minutes occur, even though you may have called the ambulance. Okay, so I've tried to explain to you in very simple terms. I've tried not using any medical terms. I hope you have understood so far. So I have so far told you what the problem is. Now, let us tell you what the solution is, what you can do to help save that person's life and his brain. Okay, so now we're going to tell you 4 very simple steps. Keep looking at them, keep following them, write down whatever you need to. At the end of the session, you can always ask us a lot of questions. Okay. All right. Sumaya?
So till now, we have understood that a heart attack and cardiac arrest are 2 different things. In a heart attack, a person is complaining of chest pain. You're rushing him to the hospital. While in a cardiac arrest situation, the person has collapsed and he's not responding, he's not breathing, and you have to go ahead and help him. So how are we going to do that? We're going to learn in the next 4 easy steps. So coming to our first step, we are going to recognize that if the person who's collapsed in front of you has collapsed due to cardiac arrest or due to some other reason. So how are we going to do that? So Anand, can we have the presentation off for a while? So assume somebody has collapsed in front of you, either sitting down or sideways, as you saw on the slide. The first thing you need to do is put this person on the floor. You have to make him lie down straight on the floor, and then you have to check whether he's responding. So tap both his shoulders hard and ask, are you okay? You're checking whether he's responding. So hello, are you okay? Are you okay? So you can see Anand and myself like this. We're tapping both shoulders. Hello, are you okay? Here you're giving a sense of touch and a sense of sound. So make sure you do not give him love and affection. You hit him a little loud, you shout a little loudly so that he can feel you and hear you. So once you do that, hello, are you okay? And you see no response, he's not moving, he's not blinking, he's not saying anything, you have realized this person is unconscious. You've recognized that. Now you have to check whether he's breathing. So as Anand told you, there are so many different ways. You can put the finger under the nose, you can check it here, you can check it here. All these ways are correct. They are not wrong. But we are going to teach you the fastest way of checking if somebody is breathing, and that is by putting your hand on the abdomen. The person who's lying down like this, you'll keep your hand here, press it for 10 seconds and check if there is a movement, there's breathing up and down. So I request all of your students, parents, and teachers to just do this with us so you have a better idea. Just sit up a little straight. Keep your hand here on the abdomen. You do not have to keep it on the chest area. You have to keep it on the abdomen. Press it a bit. Take a deep breath. Breathe out. Again, breathe in. Breathe out. And definitely you will feel a movement. You will feel your breathing here up and down. So similarly, we request you to do this for the person who's collapsed. You'll keep your hand here. Press it for 10 seconds and you'll feel a movement if he's breathing. So if you feel the movement and you know that he's breathing, rush him to the hospital. He has collapsed due to some other reason. Could be overdose of medication, could be drop of sugar, could be, maybe fits. So if there's any other reason, but since he's not responding, but he's breathing, so take him to the hospital. But if you check for breathing and there's no breathing also, so that means there's no response and there's no breathing, that means this person has collapsed due to a sudden cardiac arrest. Now remember, when you see no response and no breathing, don't think, oh my God, this person is gone. The person is in a sudden cardiac arrest situation. He has 10-15 minutes of time and you have to help him. So our first step here is no response and no breathing. We have identified a sudden cardiac arrest, correct? Now let's go to our second step, Anand.
Yeah, sure.
So after our first step of recognizing a cardiac arrest, we have to go to our second step where we need to call the ambulance. Remember, this is an out of hospital collapse. So we need an ambulance. Now make sure today only you save in your phone emergency numbers. That is hospitals around you, wherever you're staying and wherever your school is. Make sure you save those hospital numbers in your phone today because an emergency can happen anywhere, anytime. Also save the number 108. This is a government service number which runs in many cities. So make sure you save the number 108 as well on your phone because in case you may dial a hospital, nobody may pick up, you have an alternative number to call. Now, when you call for an ambulance, make sure you ask for a cardiac ambulance because sometimes in a hurry, in a chaos situation, we may just call up and say, please send an ambulance quickly. At that point of time, a small ambulance will come with a ward boy and a stretcher. So here you have to specify, please send me a cardiac ambulance because every cardiac ambulance has a doctor as well as has this machine. So second step, you're going to call for a cardiac ambulance. And also, if you know this machine is somewhere around you, as I said, we put it many places here in Mumbai. Maybe it is there in Pune, maybe in some malls, at the airport, there would be some. So if you know this AED machine is somewhere around you, ask somebody to get the nearby AED machine. So second step, call for a cardiac ambulance and call for the nearby AED machine if you know it's available. So our 2 steps are completed. We've recognized a cardiac arrest and we've called a cardiac ambulance. Now let's go to our third step. Our third step, we are going to learn how to do chest compressions or cardiac massage. So Anand, can we have the presentation off for a while? So again, I wish to show you where you need to do the cardiac massage. So if you can see the mannequin, think of an imaginary cross. The point between the 2 nipples here, the center point is the point where you will be doing CPR or cardiac massage. So if you feel your body from the top, there's a hard sternum and then there's a soft portion that goes in. This is called the lower sternum. So exactly the point between the 2 nipples. Now this point is the same if it is a gent or it is a lady. The point will remain the same. Now we're going to show you hand positions, and again we request you to do this with us so you have a better idea. So just move a little back from your device and put your hand straight. That is, if you're a righty, you will put a right hand. You're a lefty, you'll put a left hand. Your dominant hand needs to be straight. The elbow needs to be straight. Fingers need to be opened out and the other hand will interlock it from the top like this. Make sure both your elbows are straight and your hands are totally stretched out. We request parents, teachers, and students to do this with us so you have a better idea how this is done. So this should be your position, hands totally stretched out. Okay. Now this is called the heel of the palm. This heel of the palm will come in this center point that we showed you here between the two nipples. And how to do compression, we're going to show you a small video. Please watch that a little carefully. So as you can see on the screen, the person is made to lie down on the floor, heel of the palm, center of the chest, just like how we showed you. His hands are interlocked and he's ready to do the chest compression. He's on his knees and he's on top of the person. Now this needs to be done either from the left hand side or the right hand side of the person, not from the head side and not sitting on his legs. So he's taken his position. Now let's watch together how he's doing.
It's your turn to practice. First, get into position. Place the heel of one hand on the center of the chest. Put the heel of your other hand on top of the first. Follow along with the drum beat. Let's begin. Push straight down, hard. Push down at least 2 inches. Push at the rate of 100 to 120 compressions per minute. After each compression, let the chest come back up to its normal position. Keep your compressions going until the drum beat stops.
So as you can see, the heel of the palm between the two nipples, and he's doing the compressions. His elbows are straight, complete pressure coming from the shoulders. He's compressing down, allowing the chest to rise and compressing it again. He's doing this hard and fast. He's not stopping. So please watch this very carefully. So as we saw in the video, he started doing the compressions in the center of the chest. Now these compressions need to be done at the rate of 100 to 120 beats per minute, going down 5 centimeters and recoiling. This is the rhythm, because our heart pumps like this: 1, 2, 3, 4. With the same rhythm, you have to do the compressions: 1, 2, 3, 4. That is why the rhythm. But what are we doing exactly? His heart has stopped, and because of that, the blood is not reaching even the brain. And if the blood doesn't reach the brain in 3 minutes, the brain will get damaged and the person will get affected. So we do not want this to happen. So this heel of the palm becomes his heart. The moment you keep the hand in the center of the chest and you compress and you recoil, that is, you allow the chest to rise, every time you do that, blood from his heart is pushed to his brain, keeping his brain alive. See how important it is. Every time you compress and recoil, little amount of blood is reaching his brain. But when you're doing this, it is not easy. However fit you are, after some compressions, you will tire out. And if you're tired out, you will not be doing effective compressions. So what to do in a situation like this? You have to continue doing compressions or the person is gone. So one thing is good in our country: if somebody collapses, you'll have 10, 15 people standing around you. They'll give you free advice. Splash water on his face, give him a slipper to smell, put an onion. We hear all these things. So you have to say, no, I know what I'm doing. And you start the compressions. Tell everybody around you to watch how you're doing. The moment you feel slightly tired, you tell the person in front of you, now you take a turn and do this. Then you take a turn and do this. Let people do this turn by turn so effective compressions are done. While the other person is doing it, you can monitor whether he's doing it correctly in the center of the chest. You can call the ambulance and you can take some rest too. But turn by turn, it is important to do it. But then also, till when do we continue this turn by turn? So you have to continue doing this turn by turn till 1, he revives. That is, he opens his eyes, he starts breathing. You will stop your compressions. Secondly, if your cardiac ambulance comes, then you'll say, doctor, please take care of him, and you will stop your compressions. Or thirdly, if somebody brings this machine, then to attach the pads, you will stop the compressions, or you're going to continue doing compressions. The next question in your mind will be, maybe the ambulance will take half an hour to come. So is it right that we continue compressions for such a long time, or 10, 15 minutes and there's no point? So doctors have saved a person doing compression even for an hour and a half. So from your side, you have to do your full effort. You have not to stop. If you stop, person is gone. So you continue doing it right up till either 1, he revives, or the cardiac ambulance comes. So just a summary of what we learned now. Chest compressions in the center of the chest at the rate of 100 to 120 beats per minute, going down 5 centimeters and recoiling, doing this turn by turn till he revives or till your cardiac ambulance comes. Yes, Anand.
You just watched the demo of CPR being done, and there is a possibility that you might have seen it for the first time. We don't really want our session to be just another session, but we want our session to be such where you actually do understand how to do it, so that, in reality, if something like this happens and you have an opportunity to save a life, you are able to. So now you must be thinking, I've seen the demo on the computer. Okay, I'm glad that I saw this, but whether I'll be able to do it or not, in reality, I don't know. So I'm hesitant. I don't know. I'm not too sure. So I'm going to tell you two very strong reasons on why you need to perform CPR on a person if it actually is happening in front of you and you're the person who can save a life. Why do you need to do CPR? Strong reason number one, because at that particular moment of time, okay, also, this incident that we're talking about, it's obviously out of the hospital. So if it happens in the hospital, the doctors are going to be there, the nurses are going to be there, they're going to take care of the person. But at a place where it's like far from the hospital and nobody's around, or maybe you're the only person who knows it, you're going to help that person. So you will at that moment not be able to give any water to drink to that person. You will not be able to give any food to that person because you won't be able to intake it. You won't be able to give any medicine to that person. And since you're not a doctor, you won't be able to inject any into his body. So what is that one option left for you to do? And that option is CPR. And CPR happens to be one of the best reasons or one of the best options possible to save that life. And strong reason number two, it is not difficult to perform CPR. It's not difficult to do it. So if you think, I don't know whether I'll be able to do it, don't worry. Just get started and you will be able to. I have absolute confidence in you, more than you have in yourself, simply because we have seen people who have they don't have any background of medicine, and they have been the common citizens and they have done it and they have revived people. So don't worry, go ahead and do it. You should be able to. All right. Now I'm going to tell you 2 or 3 odd things about CPR. CPR is cardiopulmonary resuscitation. Cardio is cardiovascular. It's about your heart. Pulmonary means something to do with your lungs, and resuscitation means revival. So your CPR is because you're trying to revive a person. Every single time that we've seen CPR being done on a person on television, maybe in the movies, or maybe you might have read about it somewhere, we have observed that every single time mouth to mouth resuscitation is mentioned. So you always have to do mouth to mouth, the process of giving breath from your mouth. Now, I want you to know something about this here. I want you to know that you don't have to do it. There is no requirement for you to give mouth to mouth on that person. Doing it with your hands, the way you just saw it in the demo, is quite enough. It's known as hands only CPR. It's going to be quite enough to save the life of that person and keep his brain from getting damaged. Okay. And the last thing that I want to mention here is just one line. If you have a pen and a paper hand, you can write it down, or you can remember it. And that line is very vital for you to remember also. And that is that you do not perform CPR on a person who is breathing. Okay. We don't do it on a person who's breathing. So whatever reason he may have collapsed on the floor or on the street anywhere, but if he's breathing, you're not going to perform CPR on him. CPR is done only on a person who has stopped breathing. And that basically happens only in one condition, which is known as sudden cardiac arrest, which you're learning today. Okay. All right. So, ma'am.
So we've completed our 3 steps. We've recognized the cardiac arrest, we've called the cardiac ambulance, and we've learned hands only CPR. Now we're going to go to our 4th step, where we are going to learn how to use the AED machine. Anand, can we have the presentation off for a while? So this is an AED machine. The full form is automated external defibrillator. In lay language, is called a shock machine. In case you've seen this machine in any different shape or color, please do not worry. They're different manufacturers, so different shapes and colors, but they all work the same way. Now, if you can see from inside, this looks like this. There's a pull lever. The moment I pull open the lever, it's going to tell me what to do step by step. So I'm going to do that. Now I'm going to switch it off to explain to you. But in case you ever use this machine, you will keep it on at all times. So if you can see, the moment I've opened it, there is a set of sticky pads. They are electrodes. Each pad has got a picture with an arrow indication where this needs to be attached on the body. So this one says here on the right-hand side below the collarbone. And this one says here on the left-hand side below the ribs. So I'm going to peel it off and I'm going to attach it and show it to you. Very simply, just peel it off and attach it. So this looks like this. Remember, just the way I've attached the pads as per the picture shown, you have to do the same thing, because if you've attached the pads like this or any other way, it is not going to give a shock to the heart, because our heart is here. The shock needs to go through the heart. Another important thing is these pads need to be attached to dry and bare skin. So if the person is taken out from a water body, or it's raining, or he's perspiring, you need to wipe off that portion and attach the pads because they're electrodes. So, and also bare skin. Now bare skin, because they're electrodes, if you put them on clothing, they're not going to give a shock. So if the person has, if the person is a male and he's fallen down in a public place, you'll have so many people around it. If it's a gent, you'll just pull up the shirt, you'll open the buttons and you'll attach the pads. But the same thing can happen to a lady. At that point of time, modesty comes in the way. You're trying your best to help, but people around will say, what are you doing? Why are you removing the clothes of a lady? So we have a solution for that. If the lady is wearing a sari, you can adjust the blouse and attach the pads. But if it's a full suit and it's a tight suit, you just lift up this portion and cut it off, lift up this portion and cut off the clothing and attach the pads. That way modesty will also be saved and you'll save the life too, right? And here there's a pair of scissors. You can use that scissors in the box and cut off the clothing. Now we're going to hear what the machine is saying.
Place pad. No one should touch the patient. Analyzing.
It's analyzing the heart of the person who you've attached the pads to.
No one should touch the patient. Analyzing. Shock advised. Stay clear of patient. Press the flashing orange button now.
So you can see this button is flashing.
Deliver shock now.
It's saying press the button to deliver shock. So I'm going to do that.
Press the flashing orange button now.
So I'm going to do that.
Shock delivered. Be sure the ambulance service has been called. It is safe to touch the patient. Start CPR.
So what did the machine do? The moment you put on the pads, the machine said analyzing. So it is analyzing the rhythm of the person who's collapsed. You've attached the pads. Once the machine analyzes the heart, the machine will decide whether the shock is required or not. You're not going to decide that. If the machine feels shock not required, machine will say shock not required. But if the machine feels, yes, the heart requires a shock, there was a button that was flashing. All that you need to do is press that button to deliver shock. But when you press the button, the person is going to get a shock. So please do not touch him. Otherwise, you will also get a shock. Once the button is pressed, the person gets a shock. The machine says, now it is safe to touch the patient. Start CPR. So you will not remove the pads. You will not switch off the machine. You will just continue to do CPR in the center of the chest as you learned in the previous step. For 2 minutes, the machine is on, but it's quiet. It allows you to do chest compressions. After 2 minutes, it goes into the second cycle and decides whether the second shock is required or not. Because it's not necessary in one shock, his heart may start pumping. He may require 2, 3, 5, 10 shocks. But how many shocks to give, the machine is only going to decide that. So this machine is very safe for you to use. Please go ahead and use it if it's in front of you, because it's automated. You have to just follow the prompts and you can also save a life. Yeah.
With the amount of questions that we're getting, I wish we were like in front of you guys so that we could have answered it directly. Dr. Yash, you want to say something?
Yes, doctor.
Yeah, actually, the students and the parents, I commend them, but the speed with which I'm typing the answers is much less than the deluge and the barrage and the flood of the questions that are coming, which is good. So don't many of those questions are I just wanted to say are similar. So we won't be answering all of them. The ones which are repetitive, we can try to cover them later again during the discussion. And I request Professor Kinjal also, K. Joe, to start answering some of those questions.
I'm answering them. as the session continues. Yes.
All right, so we'll continue and then quickly get it done with so that we can answer all the questions. So AED was being talked about, and I'm going to talk about AED the same thing. I'm going to tell about AED the same thing that I told you about CPR, which is that if ever there comes a time in your life where you have to use the AED, please do not hesitate. Why? Because this machine is a very easy to use machine. Number one reason, it has actually not been made for the doctors. It has been made for the common man to use. So now you can imagine how easy the directions of the machine would be if you ever needed to use it. So all you need to do is attach the pads, and that's all there is to it. After that, you just need to listen to the prompts the way you just saw in the demo that Sumaya just showed you. Okay. Understand also that this is a life-saving machine. Okay, so it provides shock. So people ask us, what if I try to use the AED and it gives a shock by mistake to a person not intended to do it? But that doesn't happen. It is not going to happen because this machine is made via certain logic. Okay. What it does is the moment you place the pad over a person's body, the first thing it does is it checks the rhythm of the heart. If the rhythm is present, then this machine is not going to do anything. Okay, nothing. But if it realizes, if you put the pad on a person who's just got a sudden cardiac arrest, then it's going to detect that there is no rhythm of the heart, and then it's going to start prompting you on what you need to do, and a shock needs to be delivered. And by the way, the shock is not just going to be delivered like that. If you saw Sumaya do the demo, you must have noticed that she had to press the button, which means a human intervention is required in order for a shock to be delivered. So don't think by mistake shock lag gaya to kya hoga, not going to happen. Now, I don't really want to talk about the machine per se. I want to talk to you one-on-one. I can see that you are so enthusiastic by your question. So I want to request one or two things to you. Number one is that please, after the end of this session, take 5 minutes of your time and go on to Google and type AET. And the moment you do that, you're going to have a lot of articles written on it. Please read some of them. Once you read them, you'll realize that this machine saves lives. And if you walk out of India, if you go out of India, you'll realize that every single person knows about AED, knows about CPR, knows about the laws of the land. And every single society there, in the clubs, in the swimming pools, etc., they have this machine installed so that lives can be saved. And therefore, my second request to you is, I'm basically talking to the people, to not the students at the moment, but to the other people who are financially independent. For the students, I understand you are not financially independent at this moment. But what I'm going to say now, you can always talk to your elders about it, your parents about it, educate them about what an AED is. So my request basically is, once you have realized that this machine saves lives, please consider buying one for your society. So where you stay in a society, you buy one for your society. If you do that, you are going to make your society safe. And maybe not just your society, the entire area, maybe the other society is going to look at you and get inspired and buy one themselves, which is going to be a great thing, because that would be a small step towards making the country a safer place to live in. Now, why am I saying buy it? Because of those 3 minutes problem. Now, the problem is, if the person collapses due to sudden cardiac arrest, within about 3 odd minutes, the person's brain gets damaged. Now, within those 3 minutes, the chances of arrival of a cardiac ambulance or a doctor is going to be slim. And at that point of time, you have this machine with you installed right in front of you in your society. Then you can quickly take that machine to that person, because this machine is small and portable. You can take this machine to that person, attach the pads, and this machine is immediately going to convert itself to a doctor, like a doctor, and it's going to check whether the person has rhythm. If it doesn't, it's going to give a shock, and the chances of a revival of that person become way higher. So please consider buying it and save lives. Having said this, I want to make one thing very clear. We told you about the buying of the AED and about the AED per se, because we wanted you to have knowledge about it. But we do not sell the machine. Okay. If you want to buy this machine, you would need to go to sites like Amazon.com, etc., or you need to go onto Google and search for the manufacturer's number, and you can always call them up and they can deliver the machine to you. All right. Okay. Sumaya?
Just 2-3 things about the machine mode. This machine, it works on battery. The battery life is for 5 years. So after 5 years, you can easily get the battery changed and you can continue using the machine. The only thing, if you use these pads, they are one-time use. So there's a set of pads in the machine and an extra one in the box. If you've used this, you can easily change it and keep it ready and get another one ordered from the manufacturer. The approximate cost of this machine is between 70,000 to a lakh. Different manufacturers, different cost. But this is not a machine that you need to keep in your house. It is like a big residential society, one machine, big college campus, one school campus, fire station, police station. If all these places have one of these machines, India will be a safer place. So we've completed our 4 steps. We've recognized a cardiac arrest. We've called a cardiac ambulance. We've learned CPR, and we've learned how to use the machine too. Now we're going to show you a 2-minute video. But before that, 2-3 important points. One, if somebody collapses in front of you, is when you're going to help, or somebody says this person has just collapsed. If 3-4 hours have passed, then there's no point in doing any of the things that you've learned today. Secondly, scene safety is important. Somebody collapses in the middle of the road, a fire hazard, railway station, or electrical point. Make sure you move the person to a safe place. Make sure you are safe before you help somebody else. And third thing, if it's collapse happens on the bed, make sure you put the person on a hard surface on the floor, because a spongy bed you will not be able to do effective compressions. So let's watch this video. After that, we'll go on to the question answers. I think doctors are already answering the questions in the chat box.
Yes, they are.
आपको याद है ना, हम लोग उस दिन शादी में गए थे, और आपको मेरी वो फ्रेंड याद है ना सुनीता, कल सेम कॉस्ट्यूम ना मुझे भी अपने लिए चाहिए। अंकल याद है आपको मैंने बोला था? अंकल 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 प्लीज हेल्प मी प्लीज हेल्प मी।
Oh my God!
चलो देखते हैं।
अंकल
क्या हुआ?
प्लीज आप एम्बुलेंस को कॉल करेंगे?
एक मिनट मैं देख। हेलो, क्या आप ठीक हैं? हेलो, इनको कार्डियक अरेस्ट आया हुआ है। आप जाके शॉक मशीन लेकर आइए, तब तक मैं इनको हार्ट मसाज देता हूँ।
Please notice his position: elbow straight, pressure coming from the shoulders, heel of the palm between the two nipples, and he's doing the compression.
ये बॉक्स यहीं रख दीजिए, और जैसे मैं कर रहा हूँ हार्ट मसाज, आप वैसे ही करिए।
So there's no time waste while the other person is attaching the pads of the machine. The other person is continuing compression. And because the machine has given a shock to the person, his heart has started pumping, he's come into consciousness, he started breathing. You have saved a life. Till then, your cardiac ambulance has arrived. He needs to go to the hospital for medical treatment, even if he's come into consciousness. And after 3 weeks of medical treatment, he's now leading a normal life. More than 1 million deaths in our country, both young and old. And every minute you think, should I help or not? His chances of survival decrease by 10%. So please go ahead, spread this awareness, save lives. What you have learned today, please go and share it with more people. Tell people how important this was. But when you're teaching somebody, don't tell anybody, come on, lie down, we want to do compressions on you. Because compressions is not done on a person who is breathing. So you've not done it for a heart attack victim, but for a person who stopped breathing and not responding is only when you will go ahead and do cardiac compressions. So with this, we've come to the end of our session. Request Dr. Kinjal to take it ahead.
Yes. We shall start with the question answers that we've had repeatedly coming into the chat box. Mrs. Malik Kumar, do you want to start with the questions? Is there something that you want to start off this round with?
All right, Dr. Kinjal. What I would like to know is that suppose we don't recognize a cardiac arrest correctly and we initiate CPR, can we harm the person in any way?
That's a very good question. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes, doctor.
So, madam, your question was that if we don't recognize that it is cardiac arrest.
Correctly.
Yes.
Don't recognize.
Correctly in the sense it is not cardiac arrest and you do CPR that way.
Yes.
Yes. So this is a very, very good question. And Sometimes there are, as Anand said, there are other causes of collapsing. One of them, for example, is epilepsy. Epilepsy,
Yes.
you have a seizure and you faint, but there generally the body is convulsing. And after the convulsion is over, the person starts breathing. So you know that this is not a cardiac arrest because the person is breathing. But assume that you've erred in judgment, or it's some other cause. Like someone has some other reason why they fall unconscious, like a brain hemorrhage. They can fall unconscious and they may not be breathing well also. And if you do CPR, well, you won't do harm. You won't do harm. That's the broad answer to this. Because if it's something where the person is going to revive anyway, the person will become awake, you'll stop CPR. And if it's something like a brain hemorrhage where anyway there's a stop breathing, then you might as well continue the CPR. So no, you generally won't do harm. So it's better to err on the side of doing CPR rather than withholding it.
Thank you, doctor. But suppose there's an accident, suppose there's a car accident or something, and the person has been hit by the car or has fallen down, there is a bit of blood and all that, but the person is not breathing. At that time, do you feel that we should do the CPR?
I think generally if in an accident like this, it will be, if the person has really stopped breathing, it might be a massive internal hemorrhage, internal bleed because of the accident. There, I don't think CPR is going to help because that's a unique situation. So that will be something. There'll be multiple fractures and injuries also in such a person.
I see. Okay. Thank you, doctor.
One of the questions that we get frequently, and that has also come a couple of times in our chat box, is can we cause any harm, any injury to the person while doing CPR? For example, can we crack a rib?
Yeah, so this is a question, and there was one more allied question, that how can a child do CPR? So we'll take both of these. So one is too much force and too less force. So sometimes especially in frail or the elderly, and if you are not properly centered around the breastbone, but your hand slips to the side and you compress a rib, you can cause a little fracture. We call it normally a minor or a hairline fracture of the rib, which really doesn't cause any serious consequence. Remember, you're saving life. So even if you fracture a rib, that can be tackled later. Person has to be alive to be able to tackle it. The more problem is of using less force. As you said, normally the heart pumps about 70 ml of blood with every heartbeat. And if the heart rate is 70, that amounts to about 70 by 70. So I'm sure some of the children have calculated, it comes to about 5,000. That's 5 liters of what we call the with CPR, you can achieve about half of that with a proper CPR, and half is more than enough to maintain survival of the brain, the kidneys, the heart itself. So you cannot achieve a normal output. Now, if you are pumping even less, if you're not able to do an effective CPR, it will be even less. So therefore, we say that try to compress the bone by about 2 inches in adults, and maybe less, maybe 1.5 inches in a child. And in a child, you may even use one hand, or you may use a very small child, the thumb. Now, that is why we say that CPR generally class 9 onwards. Class 9 onwards are the people who should be not only taught about CPR, but who should implement CPR. In fact, in many countries, it is mandatory. And in India, it's becoming now, hopefully, it's mandatory before passing out of school to be CPR trained. So that question, which I think Darshan or Darshana had asked, that how can a person like me, small child, so you can, it's yes, but you'll get tired easily. So you need somebody around, 1 or 2 more children around to help you and take turns.
We have another question, doctor. I think I'll club it with the others in the chat box. What if the patient is a pregnant woman? We can also take what if the patient has a scar which indicates any cardiac surgery in the past? And what if the patient has any implanted device? Can we still do CPR?
So the latter two are more common situations with a bypass surgery or any other heart surgery. In fact, some of these people have had heart surgeries either for bypass or for some congenital heart disease, and they get cardiac arrest. There is no issue about doing CPR. You have to go ahead and do CPR. There's nothing different. Person who has a pacemaker can get cardiac arrest. You can go ahead and do CPR. There is no issue about it. Pregnancy is rare to get cardiac arrest in a pregnant woman, but yes, if that does happen, you have to go ahead. You have to go ahead with the CPR. Yeah.
Okay. To answer a few more questions together, a lot of people have asked us that they have not understood the hand position or how many compressions. So let me tell you, the YouTube link that we have provided will have the video saved on the same link. So you can go back and see the video again, and all of those questions will be answered. To take the next one.
Actually, there was one about, someone has not understood how the AED is to be used. And actually, remember that the AED is made for public use. It is not made only for health professionals to use. And therefore, it's supposed to be idiot proof in the sense that, you won't do harm. And it's very simple to use. So you just open the box and turn it on. There's a switch. It says, and then it tells you what to do. There's a voice prompt. Take the pads. Unfortunately, many of these voice prompts are in English. We are trying to get, and there is a Hindi version in limited availability, especially in tier 2, tier 3 towns. It's better to have Hindi versions, which tells you what to do. So you take the patch, it's sticking, it has a sticking surface. You remove the thing, so it's a sticker. So stick one in the center of the chest, stick second in the below the armpit. And then it tells you, okay, analyzing the rhythm. And after that, it says, okay, now deliver the shock, or it will say don't deliver a shock, or it will tell you do CPR. So it tells you everything to do, and deliver the shock, it will tell you press this button which is flashing. So it's not difficult. But yes, having seen an actual demonstration once, maybe after you should attend another session. It was on YouTube, or see it live on a mannequin practice CPR, which will really help you. In many countries, it is
Tofi, lost your voice? No, can't hear you. I think we lost your voice, Doc. Can you just try and see if you're audible now? I think the connection is loose. Give me a second.
Am I audible now?
Yes. Yes.
So in 38 out of 50 states in the US, it was mandatory. And in many countries, it's increasingly becoming mandatory for school children to be taught CPR. In many countries, driving license, you go for a driving license, you go for renewal of a driving license, every time you have to be trained in and retrained in CPR. Remember, the most common in our situation in India to witness a CPR, witness a cardiac arrest, because 80% of cardiac arrests occur in the community, not in the hospital, will be either a rickshaw driver, a student, be it a school or a college student, or a housewife, or a house husband. So therefore, children, students should know CPR.
There's another question, Doctor, which keeps repeating in this chat box as in other sessions also. Is there any way in which we can prevent a cardiac arrest?
Unfortunately, no reliable way to predict or prevent. That is the problem. That is why if we could reliably predict who is going to get cardiac arrest, then these people could be already, you could prevent it. But there's no reliable way to predict or no reliable way to prevent. Having said that, most cardiac arrests occur because of some type of heart disease, obviously. And the commonest heart disease of those is heart attacks. So live a healthy, moderate lifestyle, control your blood pressure, no smoking. Diet sugars should be controlled, weight, and moderate exercise. See, inactivity, bad. Extreme activity can be harmful. So really the heart healthy activity is moderate exercise. For adults and parents who are listening, moderate exercise means at least in 6 days in a week, you walk 4 kilometers a day in 45 minutes. That's enough moderate exercise.
That brings us to the end of our time, Doctor. We still have a lot of questions, but I think we'll be here for a few days. So I'm going to hand it over to Anushka now so that we don't overstay our welcome. And I'm going to invite her to close the session on time for us.
As we come to the end of the concluding session of the National Sudden Cardiac Arrest Awareness Week, I would like to extend our heartfelt gratitude to Dr. Lokhandwala and Dr. Goyal for making this enlightening experience possible. I would like to thank the trainers for taking the time to teach us this life-saving skill. We appreciate your patience and dedication to empowering us with this valuable skill. We are immensely grateful to our principal, Mr. Malkumar, for providing us with this opportunity. And to all members of our school community united on this platform today, thank you for being such an avid audience and taking the time this weekend to attend this extremely informative session.
We wish you and your family good health always. On this note, we will conclude this evening's session. Thank you. You may now leave this meeting.
Doctor, thank you ever so much. That was most enlightening. And Dr. Kinjal, thank you for organizing this for us.
Pleasure's mine, ma'am. I was
and
host and the guest at the same time.
No, and I must say, thank Soumya and Anand also, because they did such a wonderful job of explaining it so well to the children, using their own, the level of the language and everything. I'm sure this has been very beneficial to the students, and we have all learned a lot. Thank you very much.
Just one parting remark. It's very appropriate, especially with children asking about the difficulties, very appropriate to say for cardiac arrest, साथी हाथ बढ़ाना, एक अकेला थक जाएगा, मिलकर CPR करना. And if we do that, हम जरूर होंगे कामयाब एक दिन. मन में है विश्वास, पूरा है विश्वास.
Yes, doctor. Yes,
धन्यवाद.
definitely. Thank you.
Have a lovely evening, everyone.
Thank
Have a
you,
lovely
everybody.
evening.
Thank you,
Thank
ma'am.
you. Have a lovely weekend.